Have you ever wondered how Netflix knows what you might want to watch? Well, in combination with other elements, they use something called multiple regression analysis. Multiple regression uses historical data to make predictions. It is used in a variety of disciplines. My name is Bogue, and I am currently in a statistics class, and I have learned this method and I have applied this to an actual problem, and I've also done more research on my own using the Harvard Business Review and reading a book about statistical methods called Super Crunchers. So to cover what multiple regression analysis is, I'm going to do it in 3 steps. First, I'm going to explain what it is. Second, I'm going to go over some applications. And third, I'm going to actually take you through what applying it involves. So, a definition that I liked by the Harvard Business Review is that is a statistical model that uses historical data to evaluate how multiple factors impact a single factor of interest. So let's say, for example, the owner of an ice cream shop wanted to know the things that were affecting their sales. They might pick out 3 things like cost, the weather, and if the number of flavors that they offer impacts their sales. So this is an important thing because it can allow you to address the things that are important and ignore the things that aren't. This way you can focus your energies where it matters and hopefully cut costs and produce more profit. So going back to that ice cream example, let's say that the analysis was run and it was found out that the cost and weather impacted sales, but the number of flavors wasn't so important. We can make recommendations based on that information. So something that the owner could do would be limit hours during times that they know it's going to be cold. So in the winter, they could have limited hours, which would cut their costs. Or they could reduce the number of flavors that they offer because they know it's not that important, and that way they can have a few flavors and maybe reduce the price on those. Both of these are ways hopefully to cut costs and produce more profit. Now that you know ways that this can be applied in business or what this is, I'm going to take you through some other applications and not just business. So it's used in a variety of fields, and some of them are pretty unique. So like I mentioned before, it can be used in customer recommendations. So your Google searches, you search something and based on your previous searches, it's going to give you a different top 3 or however many than maybe mine. Another way is Amazon recommendations. They'll make recommendations based on your previous purchases. It's the same thing for Netflix or other streaming sites. They make those recommendations based off previous choices. So another pretty unique way that's explained in the Super Crunchers book is about a name named Orly Ashtenfelser. So he really liked wine, and he thought that maybe he could apply predicting a good vintage of wine using regression, and he was right. Wine is an agricultural product that's greatly influenced by weather. So he took historical weather data in the Bordeaux region of France, and he narrowed what would affect a good vintage wine to 3 main variables. And they were the rainfall in the winter, the average temperature in the growing season, and rainfall in the harvest season. So he put this in a formula, as you can see here, and by putting in weather data into these variable places, you're able to generally predict a good vintage, a good quality of any vintage. So the Super Crunchers also explained another example that it's used in dating websites like eHarmony. So what they're trying to predict, the response variable, is how compatible a couple will be. And things that will predict that would be things like their emotional, social, and cognitive characteristics. Now, they don't release their formula for proprietary reasons. So now that you know a few of the ways that it's applied, I'm actually going to take you through the analysis. So what we're going to go through is predicting point spread of a baseball team using Jump Pro, which is a statistical software. The variable of interest, or the response variable, is the point spread. And what we're going to look at to see what impacts that, or the predictor variables, are the number of walks, hits, strikeouts, the pitcher ERA, on-base percentage, and whether the game was played at home or away. So something to keep in mind, there's only one response variable, but there can be many predictor variables, as in our problem. So after the data is gathered and it's analyzed, the software is going to give you an output rather quickly depending on how much data you have. So when looking at the outputs, what you want to focus on are the p-values, which can be shown highlighted right here. So these are what determines what's significant to the model or significant to your response variable. And by significant, I mean it impacts it. And how we look at this, so if the p-value, this number, if it's greater than 0.05, it's not significant to the model, meaning it doesn't really impact point spread. If it's below 0.05, it is significant to the model and it does impact point spread. So you can tell from these outputs that all these numbers are above 0.05, so they will be removed from the model. And those variables include the number of walks, the pitcher ERA, on-base percentage, and home versus away. So these are not important and can be disregarded. So you can look on this slide. The remaining variables are the number of strikes and the number of hits. The last thing we want to look at is the adjusted R-squared value. This is what tells us if our model is actually good or it will make an accurate prediction, how accurate that's going to be. So if you see here, ours is 22.7%, which means that our model is not very good at making predictions. They're not going to be very accurate, so you wouldn't really want to use this. To summarize, the p-values are what determine the variables that impact your response variable, and the adjusted R-squared is what tells you if it's actually a good model to make accurate predictions from. So in conclusion, today I've given a brief overview of multiple regression by first explaining what it is, second going over its applications, and third going through applying the analysis to a problem. After hearing this presentation, I hope you notice and realize that statistics, and especially regression, is everywhere in the world, and you might even use it yourself one day. Thank you.